This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and this is your one and only Turbo speaking. And now we're back here on Mapping 101 Thursdays. And yes, of course, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are in the globe. You're now watching Mapping 101 Thursdays, and I have to be 30 minutes earlier than the usual. Well, it's because there's a story in which the Mapping 101 Thursdays that needs to tell every mapper that in every situation there's always a room for hope. And of course, 3rd December 2020, of course, Christmas is near. And of course, ayong gabi sa imong tanan for Visayans. Naimbag nga bii kada kayo amin for Ilocanos. Mahay na panggi saindo gabos for Bicolanos. Assalamualaikum to our Muslims. Shalom to our dear Jewish communities. And of course, Mapping 101 Thursdays got back into DP24 GTV and ETV channels on Facebook, which of course it is simulcasted on YouTube as well, DP24 GTV. And of course, in this episode of Mapping 101 Thursdays live session, we have to tell what's happening on the emergency mapping that has been occurring for the past few weeks or months, ever since the whole Luzon got into a state of calamity. And yes, of course, so sad that most of our brothers and sisters, not only for their Bicolanos, but also for their Ilocanos in the Cagayan Valley, that got suffered flooding as well. And yes, of course, emergency mapping has to be made, especially if we're going to show you what are those places that are considered flood-prone areas right there, especially in the Cagayan Valley. What are to Gegaraussi. And of course, we're going to show it to you, the cell map later on. But before I head into the mapping 101 Thursdays proper, so let me have to show to you the results into the ongoing and completed emergency mapping that's been made, especially when it comes to the lands once again by the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority to verify the U-turn slot by installing such elevated busway. Of course, engineering factors that have needed to be considered. But for those who are affected by the Cagayan Valley flood disaster caused by the typhoon Ulysses, let me show it to you side by side. As you can see on the right hand corner of your screen, if you analyze this elevation value to the cycle map, any elevation that is less than 10 meters would be too risky for the civilization or the humanitarian settlement. Analyzing further on the Tuguegarao City, of course, this one is the river system. And we're going to see some sort of an elevated portion. I'm not sure on how many meters high. If this line is at 50 meter, or should I say the above mean sea level. And of course, going way below such values would mean it's a higher risk of flooding already. And the residents, if I could remember this one, have blamed on the dam alone. For my own opinion, of course, there would be several factors on why there is a protocol issue right there. And I might have to set aside on the protocol issues on tomorrow's DPinFocus live session. And of course, I might have to flash on the screen the tomorrow episode, which is all about 5S discipline that is needed at all times. And if there would be a major mapping changes, particularly in parts of the Republic of the Philippines and elsewhere across the globe, Mapping 101 alert could be heard exclusively on DP24 Radio, which in then is available at Spotify, iTunes, Anchor.fm, Amazon, TuneIn, Overcast, and other podcast platforms. And going back to the emergency mapping that has been made previously after the typhoon that struck the Bicolandia, certain places all around Camarines provinces, Catanduanes, Albay have been mapped with the help of our dear mapping friends. And as such, if you can see the blue line in Naga City, then there is a bicycle lane already that got installed and enabled by the city government themselves. Mind you guys that there is a bit of a major change because the cycling map has been reclassified into this national type since it involves our dear Department of Transportation's plan to install such protected cycleways. And yes, you're right. There would be a major changes to the cycle routing system or bicycle routing system that have takes place. Mall of Asia have installed already the bicycle lane on the major routes. Bacoor City have repeated once again the bicycle lane across the or along the Bacoor Boulevard. Cavite cities have been or have unseparated cycleway on both sides just to protect all cyclists from motor or to separate motor vehicles and bicycles. Of course, the big major change has been occurred in the whole Jose Abad Santos Avenue. They have or the city government of Dasmariñas have expanded the median installation in order to deter wrongly driving related crashes and to simplify the traffic flow that is being needed at all times. And also, there would be a probability of median installation somewhere else in Dasmariñas City, especially if we're going to check once again the Highway 65, particularly Palipan. And of course, this portion, right at the center of your screen, let me close this one. As you can see, there's a break in the divided highway itself. Whereas, if we're living or accustomed into the British accent or terminology, then it is considered a solo carriageway, and if you're, or should I say, if we're at the divided highway for the American and dual carriageway for the British, whatever the terms would be most acceptable. And as such, it might be a standard recommendation in the near future for the highway planning to have at least 15 meters of right-of way at all times if you're going to plan for a highway routing. And of course, affected residents are needed to be relocated. That's a sad reality. That houses have been built close to the highway. Well, for the safety sake, it's not acceptable at all costs. PTVNews Link Road is also catching up on the construction of the remaining segment to connect it further into Highway 419, the second radial road, also known as General Emilio Aguinaldo Highway. Apologies for the shortened term or shortened name that has been appeared on screen, where it should be the completed one, like either General Emilio Aguinaldo Highway or Emilio Aguinaldo Highway, but some editors here have disagreed and reverted for some reason until there would be a further consensus from the local community on what would it be standardized naming for this highway. But then EDSA Tasmanias is catching up on the construction, speeding up the turnover process. And so, thank you so very much to the wonderful developer BA Properties for speeding up certain construction projects. And as far as you're wondering on why there is a global, or should I say a global or worldwide mapping experience on the type, well, part 2 will come, especially on the next part right after the break. So stay tuned. Well, good evening to all of you, and for those who are joining in to Mapping 101 Thursdays, this is your one and only Dearborn speaking, and the background sound that is being played here is courtesy of Dakey Inspired. Of course, I'll change the sound back into Joaquin Carud later on. For the time, if you have missed one earlier about the emergency mapping that has been made for the past few days or weeks, of course, before I head into the news segment, of course, let's summarize this one. And so, without further ado, let me share this with you, this scheme, courtesy of the street map viewers. And as such, as you can see on the screen, the emergency has been made for the past few days, owing to the plan by the MDA to have the elevated busway to re-enable the U-turn slot. But of course, plans might not be always perfect, because there's a need for a study if there will be a feasibility to those who are, let me say, planning such elevated busway to re-enable a U-turn slot is always a challenge and might as well be prohibitively expensive. Of course, my only concern is all about the safety. But let's set aside this one, because all of these would be discussed on tomorrow's DPinFocus live session tomorrow, which is also to be happen as part of the 5S discipline. And now, we're now heading into this new segment called Memory Link here on Mapping 101 Thursdays. Whereas, as you can see, and let me see, there are instances wherein I have been up for so long as a child, including my grandmother and my brother. Of course, let me travel to you the island municipality of Saipan, which is at the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. Well, of course, as you can see the right hand corner of your screen, but of course, let me show it to you. The whole Saipan Island municipality. which is, oh my goodness, there is something wrong on what I have typed earlier, but let me show it to you, the location. As well as the memory lane will serve as a memory bank for all good memories right there. Let me zoom in to the northernmost, or should I say the northernmost part of the island. This one. It's way before mom has been working and forced to resign just to take care of me and my brother at home. And previously, if you all saw the change set history, oh my goodness. This one, the change set that has been issued, in which there is a missing carting area, or should I say the kart racing. Let me refresh this page because for some reason rendering does not load properly. And yes, of course, this one is the missing Mariana Seaside Circuit that needs to be mapped all together. And as such, this one is the hotel, and this one could be more like of individual resort style homes. And if we're going to zoom it out, this one is hereby shown. But all of the addresses here are listed as P.O. Box instead of the street name, just to protect the privacy of the homes. And if we're going to remember this one, there's a missing signal light portions, including the missing pedestrian signal light, and that needs, wait, let me refresh this one once again, because of the errata rendering, or maybe it's time for me to delete some sort of cache right here in this end. But of course, missing site has been mapped already. Missing divided highway portion, which is sort of like mixed painted and physical medium. This one is a sort of painted median or mixed. But lo and behold, if we're going to, let me say, travel in a new normal, better normal way, I would rather go into the lesser known places of interest or POIs. This one, let me say, if we're going to make new memories once again, hopefully soon, and that being said, there are missing humanitarian settlements that needs to be checked also. And by the way, I'm calling also not only for the open stream of Philippines, but also for US communities to collaborate with us for further remapping of such humanitarian settlements that are deemed high risk, not only here in the Philippines, but also for Saipan Island municipality at the CNMI, that's Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Island, which is technically part of the United States of America. And of course, with the President-elect Joe Biden have planned to do some sort of health and even the safety benefits that have long neglected during the Trump administration. I have to avoid sounding political right here, but if you can watch some sort of news or documentaries, of course, even with the warnings that takes place, only the localized lockdowns have been made in order to curb the spread of COVID-19. And of course, if we're going to have another memory lane, even though I haven't been at the New Zealand, let me this land. This one is also called Aotearoa. I'm not sure what language is this, but well, let's see. I'll be going to, check once again the Christchurch in which I have. Wait. Well, let me deactivate the screen share and go with full screen. While I'm going to fix something here on the open stream map that has been previously mapped as early as possible, the missing barley farm that needs to be mapped as well. Let me check once again the edit history that has been made previously. well, it might have a slim chance to be found. Oops. Even Singapore as well, I have mapped on the occasion of the, what you call this, correcting some sort of editing errors that has been made. And let me go through the previous mapping 101 memory link experiences. I have previously mapped also the Mindanao to Bitung in Indonesia, the ferry mapping. And of course, humanitarian infrastructure is more important than the driving directions on the previous map editing experience. But let me tell you a story. Of course, we have to live in a culture where there would be, or should I say, where there would be abundant way of mapping. And of course, on my previous map editing experience where in the other editor has to undergo some sort of approvals or anything. But I have no problem with requirements, but there's a problem here. On my previous map editing experience, it takes several days to be appeared. But for the OpenStreetMap, it's in real time. Real-time changes will be reflected, but sometimes there will be, oh my goodness me, there would be or let me say, there would be instances where let me switch to the screen while going to fix the that have switch for unknown reason. Of course, we're still in the memory lane. As you can see on the right hand part of your screen, there are so many edits. Of course, there's Singapore here. And even mapping 101 emergencies that I have encountered sometimes whereas there would be some sort of allegations that may affect most of the bus jeepney routes and its associated conflict and validation pieces that need to be fixed right away. And as such, conflict on the editing has to be resolved. And of course, air and mappers would tend to be map the U-turn slot that is supposedly closed. Let me check once again. Calibration has been made for UV extracting less than 5 tons of weight for the van to pass through the Longos overpass. And I'm still looking for, let me see, this one is planned emergency reversion due to inadvertent missagging. And this one is the leasing farmland that needs to be mapped as well, in which it could be a betterment for our communities. Such emergency revisions of certain erratic change sets that would affect most of the bus and jeepney routes will be executed once it has been detected once again by yours truly once again. Public transportation anomalies can be unacceptable. Of course, Bangor Dasmanias National Road, especially the Molino Road segment from Dasmanias City's Sarawak all the way to Tanghai, got altered in any way that forces me to restore such erratic change set, and I have referred into this storage way from the entrance arch. And such downgrades from the Apple data team could be flagged down by this or be summoned by fellow editors here in the Philippines. And of course, another overhaul that has been made, especially the erratic change sets, and of course a QAQC or the quality assurance quality control itself. Following the recent recovery of Molino overpass. Oh my goodness. Some was tampering with the Molino overpass that is considered ongoing construction. Hopefully, those editors involved in those tampering of such valuable data could be sanctioned as well. Because it has to be fully disclosed in an open and efficient manner. And that's why what I have to love about the Java OpenStreetMap editor is that I have to use the reflector software that needs the most for referring such erratic changes that might get detected. Transport map is yet to be refreshed. So with the cycle map, I'm not 100% sure for the OPNV card. Humanitarian and standard are linked together. This one, as you can see at the center of the screen, is the overpass under construction. But for some reason, OPNV card is not showing up. For humanitarian sake, there is a need for room for improvement on the national roadway system or the national highway system. And one more thing for sure is that there is a signal light already here at the Camellia Homes Danghari and even the Agustin Grove, or should I say, Camellia Homes Danghari in Bacoor City, and yes, you're right, Agustin Grove in Tasmania City has a signal light already. Tomorrow on DPinFocus live session, it would be more of the 5S discipline tips and also definitions and even the philosophy that needs to be learned by most of the viewers right here on DP24 GTV and ETV, on Facebook Watch and DP24 GTV on YouTube. The rule on the signal light is that you need a separate turning lane, especially on the highway. And as far as what I have learned from BFA Place on the city skylines, one for the left and one for the straight through, and there's a bit of a problematic highway approach. It's not a type of the highway that we have wanted for. has to be asymmetrical, whereas 3 and 2, one the left, one for the straight 2, and one for the right. Oh my goodness me. It might take some lengthy discussion here, but let me see. Currently, the Highway 65 going Paliparan 1 is now undergoing some sort of widening works in order to address the narrow lane width issue. And of course, Estanciao Mangubat Kaong Kong Street, which is so located in Bohol, Maine, has to be widened so badly, to the point that there's a need for a median installation. Of course, the Congressional Avenue, or Congressional Road rather, from Juliet all the way to Foxtrot will soon to be the 100% median equipment. Santa Maria is okay, San Antonio de Padua is okay, but for Emmanuel and Santa Cruz 2 yet to be installed, but from Santa Cruz 1 and San Lorenzo Luis, from Santa Maria Iglesia Parish Church all the way to Fatima or Foxtrot is already 100% equipped. Unfortunately, bridges are the hardest to widen. Fatima Road is now okay for Fatima, Foxtrot, and also Kilo and Charlie. And good thing here it is that there's a separate bus or jeepney lanes that are being restricted to public utility vehicles only. No stopping, no loading, no unloading is allowed on the main carriageway or the highway itself. And as you are wondering why I use the term highway, then of course it is not necessarily the highway but also the roadway. Of course, all preferred roadways that have painted power poles have to be classified except for summer wind, as they are not allowing the city workers to repaint the post or pole. Hopefully so. If the highway system would improve, then I'm going to rather go for the grade separated portion. We don't like any more signalized junctions that are too congested suggested, especially for the whole Padapala. And of course, fixes have been made for the roundabout interchange. MCX has been fixed, but there's one basic element, is the PA system, which is survive required for all toll plaza for some sort of important announcements. This one is in New Zealand's Christchurch. This one is the farm. Let me zoom it out and refresh once again. There's a line up of the surface roadways that are missing already. And of course, the line up trees. But I haven't included the name of the farm. It takes time to load for any reason, but of course, let me check once again on the previous change sets, maybe 2 months or 3 months. Clark, of course, I have mapped already. But wait, please. By the way, paper cut fees still online for you to review on what's happening here in the Philippines. And of course, there are instances where there is a fixed alert, nationwide alert, that is being needed. And of course, I have realized some sort of mistakes that the whole related thing this one must be okay. There's a localization issues that needs to be sorted out. As far as you know, with this big discussion that I have to disclose, I tend to see arrivals and departures, which could be most commonly used at the airports and seaports, but not for the bus terminals, because arrivals or departures for the, let me say, buses would sound foreign. Of course, it could be for, let me say, the localized Filipino term babaan, and while I'm into the journey of the mapping 101 Thursday story, it reminds me again of certain mapping. What could it be? The problem for the certain modes of transportation is that for the Highway 1AH 36 Fourth Circumferential Road, which is EDSA, and Philippine Highway 170, 7 Radial Road, also known as the Commonwealth Avenue, they have banned those chips for safety's sake. And the FRB have no choice but to truncate those existing jeepney routes that are affected, U-turns like closures. And of course, MMDA have threatened to sack all of these jeep drivers by going to the citation. And of course, there are instances where there's a need for some sort of restoration. This one is the previous episode way before it got suspended due to, pista ng mapa, feast conference, and even Pao Pao Festival that led to the suspension of the live sessions. So sad for my part too, you know. I'm supposed to continue those mapping journey, but there's a need to take a break from the live streaming just to observe not only the pista ng mapa but also the feast conference, the first ever, and even the Pao Festival. And besides, JT Boulevard, of course, let me say, the R2 has been split into two separate relations per direction. Hopefully, if this would allow me to do some sort of route relation separation, which could be northbound, southbound, or westbound, eastbound first rather, and westbound. And one of the things for sure is that there's sort of build alert, and public transportation corrections, city bus route, or should I say city buses, jeepneys, or should I say modern jeepney, traditional or classic jeepney. It has to be, let me say, be reviewed as well. Maybe by next week, I might have a one-off pre-recorded session for the public transport mapping for those who are not yet familiar with the route mapping using the Java OpenStreetMap editor by next week. For the meantime, I could be into at any time venturing into the academic works and so on. So I might not be feeling well. Hopefully you could say a single prayer for me in order to have a journey into the mapping 101 and even academics as well. And I have to decrease the workload. Especially I have to drop those unnecessary activities that would rather waste my time. But anyways, this is Mapping 101 Thursdays. So, there's always a better morning every day. Removal of the bus stop would be necessary, especially if you know there's a need for some sort of adoption. For the EDSA carousel busway corridor, I have to adopt from the Indonesian counterpart of the Trans-Jakarta busway corridor. That would be the basis for mapping such separated busway. And I'm so very thankful that even though I haven't been there in Indonesia, there's a previous franchise agreement with the Itbulaga that led to the Itbulaga Indonesia. And also, if you're a feaster, there's a Light of Jesus Worship Indonesia. And so, don't forget to tune in tomorrow, which is a part of the discipline measures, safety measures in the wake of Metula's Kari Extension, major construction accident disaster that led to the loss of a life of our dear motorcyclist and enjoying several motorcycles. So hard to bear in our minds that such accidents should be prevented. But see you tomorrow on DPinFocus live session. Good night, everyone. And don't forget that we have to stay home, be safe, be well, stay sane, and you